baseball, we will open up the show with the Cincinnati Reds. And I get it. You guys don't want to hear me talk about the Cincinnati Reds. I was the guy who sat right here about 3 years ago and did the Dear Reds fans bit, just basically trolling. And, if you get in our Discord, I tease Reds fans quite a bit. Obviously, I root for another team. You get on Twitter, same thing. I like to tease Nick Kirby, Trace Fowler, all of you guys. It's all in good fun. I hope you guys realize that when I do that. But here we are, 11 games to go. The Reds somehow scrapped their way right back into playoff contention. And just like it came, it went away. They are now down 3 games in the final wild card spot with 2 teams in front of them and 11 games to play. Stranger things have happened in the sport of baseball, but even though the season has been called dead in May, in June, in July, in August on this show, which is only 2 weeks old now, I think we can safely assume that the season is rightfully done. 11 games to play, playing tough teams going forward. You play the Chicago Cubs this weekend, and you play some division rivals next week. You got to make up 3 games in 11 games. And you got to jump over about 3 teams to do it. So the Reds season is done. And here's the thing. The Reds coming into the year projected by Fangraphs to win 73 games, projected by the sports books to win 78 games, and that's going to both. I mean, obviously they've already surpassed the Fangraphs expectations, the Zips projections, and it looks like they're going to surpass the betting odds, which is 78 games. That being said, it still feels like a massive disappointment just because over the course of 162 games, and that's a bit that I don't even know if it's a bit. It's a thing that people say if you get in Chatterbox Reds, which is a phenomenal program, but you get in the chat and people go like, some people aren't made for 162. It's a marathon. It truly is. It's a long season, and you can get worked up with every single takeaway from every single game. One guy looks great on the mound one day and then looks like he can't get a single out the next day. There's one guy who you can't get out for 2 weeks, and then for a month straight, he can't do anything right. It is a marathon. There's ebbs and flows of every single season, but here we are again in Cincinnati, a town that I've said over and over again as someone who roots for another team, that nothing makes me happier in the summertime than when the Reds are good as a baseball fan. I mean that sincerely. Like, that's not a bit. I love it when my group texts, when my group chats are constantly talking about the Reds. I love it when you get on Twitter and everyone's talking about it. I love it when my dad calls me to talk about the Reds. As I've said time and time again, everyone that I know, care for, respect is a Reds fan. So there is a part of me, even though I like to mess with you guys, there is a part of me that always wants them to do well. And here we are at the end of the season once again, and it feels just kind of like, man, here we are again. Gonna miss the postseason. Haven't made the postseason since 2020, the COVID year, and in a full season, haven't made the postseason in over 10 years. They've had a couple times where they fought to the end, 2021, 2023, 2019, to a lesser extent, and now this year. And I wonder, because the Reds are exceeding kind of where they're projected to be, I wonder if it's just a culmination of things of just this entire city, right? It's the Reds bleeding, or it's the entire city bleeding into Reds fandom. Because I remember in this room in 2023, Paul Fritchner, who was on the show, one of the producers at the time, was talking about this city of Cincinnati and how for the first time in his life, for the first time in a lot of us that are, upper 20s, young 30s, everything had seemed to be kind of on the rails once again. Well, since the early 2010s, when the Bengals and the Reds were good at the exact same time. He mentioned how the Bengals had come off their best 2-year run in franchise history. Super Bowl, AFC Championship game with no signs of stopping, having one of the best quarterbacks in the league. The Reds at the time were hot off a 12-game win streak. First place in the National League Central on a season that they were projected to win 66 games. And you can go down to the college ranks. UC Bearcats were joining a big boy conference. They're joining the Big 12 that season. They had come off, prolonged success in the football program, and they had what they thought was a young, great coach in Wes Miller. Even Xavier, the small fandom that I hold to, coming off a Sweet 16 berth. Sean Miller, one of the best coaches in the sport, looked like he was here for the long haul. FC Cincinnati had the best player in the sport, had the best roster in the sport, in the MLS. And here we are, 2 years and some change later, and the Reds find themselves in the same mud that they've been in for the last decade. There are some bright spots. Sal Stewart looks fantastic. Looks like a true middle of the lineup bat. Ellie De La Cruz, though he had a bad year, I think we can all say that that's still a centerpiece that you can build a team around. The Bengals, in just the 2.5 years, have seen 3 injuries to our star quarterback, Joe Burrow. Bearcats football in shambles. Bearcats basketball hasn't made the tournament. Xavier, now on a new coach. And FCC, I'll be honest, I don't know what's going on with them. I don't know what's going on with them. But you got to wonder if it's kind of what you're feeling right now is just some of the mundane emotions that you felt about the Cincinnati Reds over the last decade, or if it's bleeding from else places. Now I'll tell you, I still think that there is ways that you can take away in these last 11 games something positive out of the season. Because now you can firmly hang your hat up and go, all right, what can we do going forward? And there are some ways. Finish the season over 500. They've only done that 4 times. I think 3 times in the last 12 years. 4 if you count the COVID year. And you have an opportunity. The most wins that they've had, I believe, is like 83, 86. I mean, you get hot. You could have the most wins that you've had since 2014. 83 in 2021. Ellie De La Cruz. Man, is it the injury? He was, at one point, the most exciting young baseball player in this sport. And he's had a negative season. I think we can all say that. And there's a lingering injury there. There's some other things that have happened this year that you can kind of attribute to. But can he finish with 20 home runs and have another good year? He hasn't hit a home run in, 300? And he's hit 1 home run in the last 350 plate appearances. Can he get one more, get to 20? Make sure that the Reds at Great American Ballpark aren't left off the list of teams to hit 20 home runs. I think there's 3 teams right now that haven't hit 20 home runs. 2 of them in the NL Central, the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Cincinnati Reds. And I think the Cardinals have 1 guy that's hit 20 home runs. So the NL Central has just not got a whole lot of boppers. Can you continue to see some things from your young pitchers? Can you continue trending forward to where you're like, all right, this is going to be a team that's going to be focused on run prevention. Can we score some more runs? There are ways in which the Reds can go forward and kind of end it on a positive note. Maybe you don't want to hear that. Maybe it's just minutia at this point. But I'm a guy who always likes to put a positive spin on things. That's what you guys give me crap for. I always like to put a positive spin on things. And I'm not trying to dig the knife into your Reds fandom right now. I'm not. It's actually, once again, as the guy who trolls Reds fans, it's actually a lot more fun when you guys are good, because then it just feels like I'm being silly. When things are down, it feels like I'm being mean, and I don't like to go there. Stone, as a lifelong Reds fan, what are your emotions right now? As once again the season, where just a week ago we were talking, man, is this going to happen? Is this Reds team going to get in the postseason? And now 11 games to go, they just couldn't seize an opportunity.
Yeah, I think my expectation coming into the year was pretty cut and dry. I was going to say season is a massive success if you make the postseason, and season is a massive failure if you do not. I know you were saying that it's over. It feels like it's basically just about over, but then again, over the course of the past couple of months, there's been some times where it's felt like it's basically over, so I'm not quite ready to write them off entirely. They do have a day game today against the Cardinals. They lose that. Maybe I'm ready to do it there at that point. But 3 games back, as you mentioned, several teams that they need to leapfrog in order to get into a position where they could make the postseason. But at the end of the day, just not enough offense is really the takeaway. And I know that's basic, but they didn't score enough runs to be competitive, especially in the National League with lots of really good baseball teams. So, when the season's over or when they're officially eliminated, we'll kind of, rehash exactly how we got to this point. But, yeah, I mean, it's pretty disappointing because the expectation, you bring Tito in, you have a lot of young talent, you have a great starting rotation, and it looks like yet again they're going to fall short, and that's incredibly frustrating.
Do you think that they've met your expectations as a fan, or do you think they've gone below? What were your expectations coming in this season? Was it to make the postseason?
That was my expectations. So, they've came a little bit, lower than that here at this point. I didn't think they were going to win the division. I didn't, think they were going to win a ton of games, but I thought they would be a few games over 500 right now, and obviously they're a few games behind that.
Yeah, and when you look at how this team is constructed, when you look at how Nick Kroll in the front office thought about this team was never going to win 90 games. Just simply wasn't. That wasn't how they were constructed. That was never in the cards. Unless, you pull what the Milwaukee Brewers did, which is unseen of, and maybe we should just get used to it because that's just kind of who they are right now. Did you see that, speaking of the Milwaukee Brewers, did you see that Pat Murphy, after they clinched a postseason spot, read a letter from Bob Uecker? Did you see this?
I did not, no.
So, see, I will tease the Milwaukee Brewers because this is actually absurd. Pat Murphy, head coach of the Milwaukee Brewers, when the Brewers clinched a postseason spot, pulled out and said, I've got a letter from the late Bob Uecker, the most famous man in Milwaukee Brewers. And he wrote this letter. It's a poignant message, and it kind of riled up the Brewers. Later came out, the letter wasn't from Bob Uecker. Like, the Brewers put out this post about Pat Murphy reading this letter. It's like, look at this letter. Look at our head coach reading this letter from the late, great Bob Uecker to the team. And then, the next tweet was like, oh, yeah, this actually wasn't from Bob Uecker. They were, just doing it for the bit? What? I don't get that at all. Don't understand that at all. But back to the point I was working on, which is the Reds were never projected to win 90. They weren't going to win 90 games unless, you're getting a great season from Matt McClain, Ellie Daly. Everyone's exceeding expectations. And I asked this last year when the Reds, when the final wild card spot was 88 wins. It's like, does it make you feel any better that the Reds were probably never going to get it? And they're say, yeah. Looks like the final wild card spot is going to be probably about 83, 84 wins. So it was definitely obtainable. It was definitely obtainable if the Reds had a few things fall their way. So I don't know how that makes you feel. I don't know if that makes it any worse, any better. I know last year I did ask Trace. I was like, does it make you feel better? And he's like, yes, it does make me feel better because the Reds were never going to win 90 games. But there's pretty clearly a shift that needs to happen in the organization about how they can formulate runs. You see teams like the New York Yankees, they get a lot of left-handed power, or they get guys that hit the ball to the right side of the field because they know on that short porch it's gonna work out for them. Same with the Houston Astros. They get guys like Isaac Paredes that can exploit the Crawford boxes. Can the Reds figure out a way to exploit their field? Chicago Cubs do it with their Windy City. They get fly ball pitchers, guys like Shota Imanaga, who plays well when the wind's blowing in, but doesn't play well when the wind's not blowing in. So you got to figure out a way as an organization to exploit where you're going to play for 81 games, which obviously is the tinderbox that is Great American Ballpark, Great American Small Park, as we sometimes call it. But the Reds, they'll go again today. We've written them off 4 or 5 times now. Maybe they'll rip off 5 straight wins, and then we're looking into the final week, and they're like, all right, can you win this? Hopefully it's not 5 straight wins because I think the Chicago Cubs come to town this weekend, and I'll be there on Thursday. It's a Bark in the Park night. Going to take my doggos, which is kind of a fun thing.